So there's the paper clips. Let's read the back of Court Me Cowboy by Barbara White Dallas. It's Baby to Be series. Heart, Home, and Happiness, the American Romance series. Not the present he expected this Christmas. 3 weeks. Gabe Miller's marriage ended in divorce so fast it had hardly begun, which is why he couldn't begin but to believe his luck or his quote-unquote ex when she returned a few months later with the news that she legally their still husband and wife, and that the child she was carrying was his son. It looked as if Melissa might bolt again, making a custody battle his only option unless he could turn back the clock and woo her the way he should have during their whirlwind affair. But even with his boy's future at stake, mending fences with a woman, especially the one he loved, wasn't something strong, silent type found easy to do. So let's read, shall we? Okay, I marked the first page. Double damn, his head told him she would only leave again, but his gut warned him to slow down and think things through. If they had a child together, that baby was only real family he had, and if Marissa took off out west somewhere, he might never find her. No way would he let that happen, not until he found out the truth. All right, Marissa, you're on. She whipped around to face him. Her eyes were wide and locked on his. Good. He might have had to swallow his pride, accept her demands until things straightened themselves out, but that didn't mean he had to follow all the rules. He crossed the room and stepped in front of her. I'll make concessions just the way you asked. If it's courting you want, that's what you'll get. Keeping his touch light and easy, he cupped her hand under his chin and said, let's seal the deal. So we're going to start at paperclip number 1. Oh, I guess not yet. We're on about the author. When she was very young, Barbara White Daille learned from her mom about storytelling, magic, and books, and she's been hooked ever since. Now thrilled to be an author herself, she hopes that you will enjoy reading her books and you'll find your own magic in them. Originally from the East Coast, Barbara lives with her husband in warm, sunny Southwest, where they love to be in the dry heat and take up square dancing. This is a book was released in 2006. Okay, page 12 is where we're starting. The thought toughened his resolve. She staked a claim on him once, then abandoned it. What do you want, Marissa? We need to talk. Page 13. Nothing to talk about. 3 months of misery. The thought drove him forward. You're nothing to me anymore. I'm your wife. The hell you are. You left a note saying that you have this marriage ended. Get it annulled. I sent you the papers registered. I know you did, but I didn't. You're not making sense. And you're making me nervous. Worry lines creased her forehead. She clenched her hands in front of her, and her fingers were twisting like an old rope. Not thinking, he crossed his arms to reach out to her, then caught himself. What the hell was he doing? More important, what the hell was she trying to pull? He shouldn't have trusted her back then. He shouldn't have trusted her now. Clinging to what he knew instead of reaching for what he had loved and lost, he nearly spit. We're divorced. We're not. I'm sorry, Gabe. This isn't the way I planned to tell you, but the truth is, I never filed the paperwork. We're still married. He shook his head to clear it. This conversation had doubled back faster than the best cow dog at a roundup. So I'll take care of the paperwork myself. No problem. You can just hop back in your car and head out. It's not that easy. What do you mean? His gut churned. She looked down toward the house. Do you think we could go inside where we could have a little privacy? Page 14. You want to be alone with me? His gaze shot, her gaze shot to his, then darted away. We're fine right here. He didn't want her setting foot in his house again. Didn't want her close to him. Even he crossed his arms over his chest once more, readying himself for the next blow. After a while, her eyes crept back to meet his. This isn't the way I had planned on telling you this either, but his mind raced with scenarios, trying to figure out what more she could have done. What are you afraid of, Marissa? Nothing beats running out on me. He laughed, low and without humor, and adding a mocking tone. What happened? You maxed out your credit card I gave you, defaulted on a loan, got arrested, and used my name to make bail? It's all right. Whatever it is, I'll deal with it. What was it? The skin between her shoulder blades prickled, reminding him of the nearness of the kitchen window. He should have kept setting breakfast up in the bunkhouse kitchen instead of bringing the boys to the main house. Then again, they'd provided him with a built-in excuse for not taking Marissa inside. I've got a ranch to run, he reminded her, so why don't you just say your piece and be on your way? Her deep breath sent a plume of white toward him. Her gaze skidded somewhere on the past the barn, and her voice broke as a whisper, words he had to bend closer to catch. We're having a baby. Moving forward. Page 43. In the days when they first met, every time he looked at her, She had just about come undone. Every time he moved closer to her, she felt a rush of energy, and excitement overwhelmed her. Every time he touched her, no, she couldn't think of that. The fact that he knew these things, that he would willingly remind her of them, hurt her almost as her own shame. The fact that they were just as true now as they had been 3.5 months ago hurt her too. Sighing, she wrapped her arms round herself, cradling her stomach. She'd come back for all the right reasons. She had to keep telling herself that. This fighting couldn't be good for the baby. It had to stop. She had to make an agreement with Gabe, and now she had to stand by it with as little tension as possible. The only way to do that was to stay out of Gabe's way as much as she could. Page 63-64. Doc nodded. Now, son, you know I'm not one for advising someone on personal business. Ha, he interrupted. Doc, you're a disgrace to your profession, telling such whoppers. Hey, Kev, Gabe grabbed his suspenders of a young boy who just hustled past them, bringing him to a halt. Let me ask you something, Doc. Hear ever tell you what to do when you have a loose tooth? Sure, he said. He said, leave it be. If they fall out on their own, the tooth fairy will bring me more money. Aha, and yep, Doc was right. Yep. Thanks, Kev. See you later. The boy scampered off toward the group nearby the kiddie table. Brows raised, Gabe looked again at the man beside him. Proof positive, Doc. You told me and every other kid in the same story. Giving advice goes along with your white coat. It always has. The older man laughed and shrugged. Well, don't you think I've earned that right? He put a hand on Gabe's shoulder and suddenly turned serious. Gabe, all I've got to say is this. After a lifetime of taking care of this town, I know just about everybody and their history. To boot, including you and yours. No argument from me there. Then I hope you'll take this in the spirit it's intended. The Christmas spirit, as a matter of fact. Doc finally handed him his drink. Don't let what happened long ago keep you from living your life. Gabe gripped his glass in suddenly sweaty fingers and fought a flash of memory. For a heartbeat he became a boy Kevin's age, a boy who climbed into his daddy's knee and learned his mama had left him. He never forgot that day. He never forgave her. Just as he would never forgive Marissa. Moving forward. Page 77, 78, and 79. Panic shot through him. He imagined her taking off, never to return. We agreed. Yes, for the baby's sake. You're only pushing things too far, using this pretend marriage to get what you want without giving anything back. Take that kiss at the party. I'm not willing to play act to that extent any longer. Not without a few concessions from you. Like what? Like his panic trickled away. He had her, blasting off with her crazy notions, probably not even knowing what she had said, probably not meaning half of it. Like courting me, he heard her triumphantly say in her tone. He laughed incredulously. If that isn't the most... Oh, no, Gabe Miller. She moved closer so he could see her hazel eyes darken into an ominous shade. You're the one who claimed to be so old-fashioned about everything. Well, then, courting a woman ought to be just your style. That's for people getting to know each other. You're already my wife. Maybe that's where we went wrong, skipping straight to marriage without learning about each other. First, he frowned and crossed his arms over his chest. You were happy enough with that idea then. Yes, Gabe, I admit. But how good could the idea have been if our marriage couldn't even last 3 weeks? When you walked out. Yes, I did. After telling you over and over again how I felt, after trying so hard to get you to open up with me. Are you saying that I was the only one at fault for giving up on us? He set his jaw. We didn't have a courtship then. We barely had a relationship, but I want it now. We need to take a step back or do it right this time. Think it over, Cowboy. Before he could move or speak, she turned on her heel and stomped out of the kitchen. Damn. Shaking his head, he grabbed a piece of raw carrot from the roasting pan and chopped a piece of it. She was already his wife, and why should he try so hard to please her when he couldn't even trust her? Hell, he hadn't even been able to rely on her to file for divorce. How could he expect that she'd stay this time? She left once to go back to the big city. She could and probably would do it again, like a few other people he could name. Folks had a habit of running out on him. Double damn. He tossed his remaining bit of carrot in the trash. His head told him Marissa would only leave again. His heart said to kick her out while he was still the one in peace. But his gut warned him to slow down and think things through. If she was pregnant, if they had made a child, then that baby was the only real family he had left. If she took off somewhere, he might never find her. No way would he let that happen, not until he had learned the truth. He found Marissa on the living room couch with her feet up and her arms wrapped around her knees. The position suggested that she had no interest in compromise. So did the look on her face. She wouldn't turn his way. She just stared across the room as if Seth Thomas' clock on the corner shelf fascinated her. For a minute he stood there, taken back to when they first met, before all the trouble had started between them. Then he hardened his heart. All right, Marissa, you got a deal. She whipped her head around to face him. His eyes were wide and locked on his. She rose from the couch. Good. The surprises weren't over yet. He might have to swallow his pride, accept her demands until things got straightened out themselves, but that didn't mean he had to follow all the rules. He crossed the room and stopped in front of her. I'll make concessions for you asked for. Keeping his touch easy, and he cupped his hand underneath her chin. Now let's seal that deal with a bargain. That was 78, 79, 80, 81, 80 and 81 now. The night before, she had felt happy when Gabe agreed to court her. His willingness seemed to show that they had reached a new phase in their relationship, one that might lead them where a true marriage should go, to emotional closeness, a bonding that went far beyond sexual attraction. Then he had taken her in his arms, and her untrustworthy heart had given in without the slightest resistance. For the briefest moment, she thought of nothing but him. Almost too late, when she had come to her senses and torn herself away, how could she have let herself give in? For him, those kisses meant little beyond regaining any respect of his friends. Worst of all, that feeling was for Gabe knew exactly what his touch did to her and exactly when to use it to his advantage. She couldn't let him entice her again. She gave the final chunk of pepper a chop solid enough to make him jump. Feeling energetic this morning, he asked. Yes. Moving forward. Page 90. I'm going to try to get us to the first 100 pages, and then it'll be time for my workout. Gabe knows about the baby. Marissa nodded, a lump catching in her throat. He's a good man, Marissa. Maybe not easy to know, surely not easy to live with, but raising a baby alone's not easy. Believe me, work things out with each other if you can. Could they? Would they ever find that happy ending as Sarah and Tanner so obviously had? Tears rose to her eyes. She blinked them away. When she first come to live on this ranch, she had failed to reach Gabe, and he had neglected to reach out for her. What hope did she have that they could solve their problems now, when it seemed nothing had changed? Moving forward, page 93, 94, 95. Doc, you'll never believe this one. What is it, son? It's Marissa. That's what. Marissa and her foolish idea. She says that we've never had a regular relationship because we went and got married so fast. Never had a chance to get to know each other well enough, so she wants that all now. He shook his head. She wants me to court her, Doc. To his surprise, her crazy notion didn't seem to faze the other man. Gabe tried not to scowl. It's just not natural. Doc almost choked on his coffee. Well, it isn't, Gabe insisted. How are things going on at the ranch? He shrugged. Fine. It's just a week now since Marissa came back, isn't it? That started him off again. Yeah, just a week since she started cooking for me and the boys and taking care of the house, and now she's starting up in business with Daille. Doc's white eyebrows shot up. What's this? Gabe explained the arrangement. Well, that sounds promising, and what are you doing to help the relationship? 94. Me? Gabe glared. Same as I did before, same as I've always done. I work to provide for her. Guess that's not enough. Though she did do the cooking now, his hard labor put that food on the table, and though she turned him cold, he offered to share his bed with her. What more could he do? Doc, I hear what you're telling me, son, but... Doc sighed. I hear what you're telling me, son, but it's different for women. They like for their men to show them how they feel. Courting is just a traditional way of doing that. Yeah, he had told Doc about the morning she'd come back. He shot his big mouth out, being old-fashioned, and how she later used it as ammunition, a double barrel right between the eyes. I don't know what she's looking for. He put his head in his hands. It's not hard to figure, Gabe. A nice dinner out sometime, a few compliments, some surprise candies, flowers, or maybe something special to her. Gabe rolled his eyes. Damn, Doc, courting my own wife. Gabe, Marissa seems like a woman who knows her mind. Doc shook his head. My advice, no charge today. Take it or chuck it. Best to think about what she's asking. Gabe focused on his Stetson on the seat beside and ran a thumb along the brim. You saw her this morning, Doc, he asked, and his voice was low. I did, Doc said, his tone matched. Then you know, he swallowed hard, that she's pregnant. Is she? He looked up now as if not meeting his friend square in the face, and made his question less straightforward, less blunt and cold that he knew it to be. But then he didn't know how else to put it, and he had to have an answer. Doc studied Gabe. Was he bracing himself to relate bad news? Gabe's fingers clapped onto the Stetson brim. Now, what would cause you to ask a question like that? He shrugged. Face it, Doc. She's been gone for months. How do I know she's telling the truth? The older man stared him down, his gray eyes as piercing as the bright pin light he used during his medical exams, revealing all of Gabe's ills as he always did, following up with strong medicine as needed. You could start by trusting her. His dry, humorless laugh made his throat ache. Forget trust. I need facts. Doc sighed and shook his head. All right, then. The facts are, yes, your wife is pregnant, and the timing is right for the baby to be yours. page 99 and 100. Flowers. Stunned, she dropped onto the nearest chair. Her heart seemed to swell. Gabe was courting her because she demanded it, or because he really wanted to. And why hadn't he given the flowers to her? Her mind worked crazily, spinning fantasies about what that might mean. Of course, he had seen all the decorating she'd done for some reason, felt his flowers didn't measure up. How touching, and how wonderful he had tried, at least, to make her happy. She wouldn't embarrass him by letting on that she knew what he had done. She understood trying to impress someone and not meeting standards. Finally came back to the moment. She hurried down the hall in anticipation of what would happen next between them. Keeping her distance protected her from the danger of giving in to his advances, but constant avoidance would only prevent them from ever solving their problems and reaching a happy ending. She was determined to have Gabe spend time with her. If he would only listen as she told him how she felt, he would understand and relate to what she said. Maybe he would open up and share his own thoughts with her. He had strong feelings, she knew it. She had seen the emotion in his eyes that afternoon before he turned and left the kitchen. Maybe a few relaxing hours together without any of the cowboys around would do the trick. Oh, let's see. Yeah, it looks like I will save the rest of the book for another time. But that's part 1 of Court Me Cowboy. And it is a good book. So you don't want to miss out on part 2, which probably will be tomorrow night. So stay tuned. Shut off.